Hey, good afternoon, guys. Derek here with the Woodsman School. Also here with Mike from Maine Primitive Skills. I'm up here for the weekend. He's got a class going on. He had me up as a guest instructor, but wanted to talk a little bit with him and have him tell us, what's going on this weekend, kind of what he's got going on up here, and the way the class is going to pan out. So, without further ado, Mike, what's going on for the weekend?
First I want to thank you for coming up. Derek's amazing, very knowledgeable with traps. Not only what traps to select and how to use them, but how to maintain traps, and just the depth of knowledge Derek brings to the subject is unparalleled. So I want the best for my students, and I want to thank you for coming up and sharing what I consider some of the top-notch information out there.
I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here. Sure.
This weekend we have a crash course in all aspects, or as many aspects as we can pull together, of what it means to be a hunter. A lot of folks, even folks who were brought up in rural areas, aren't exposed anymore to the culture of hunting and what that means as far as being a rite of passage from a child to an adult. And one of those markers is understanding the sacrifices that are made every day in order to be alive. And when we take that life with our own hands, whether it be from a rifle or a shotgun or a bow we've made with our own two hands, that brings us into a deeper level of connection to the price that is paid for our existence. And I've seen this through the students who come through, and also just looking across the landscape. People who get into the hunting skills, or they get into trapping or even fishing, it turns them into something else. They become more humbled, but they also become more connected to the landscape. And one of the primary foundations of this school is to bring people the skills that will replace fear of the woods with comfort and respect.
Awesome. Yeah. I like that. And I don't see much of it, although I do see a little, but helping out other schools that, in my opinion, this being one of them, to be a great place to come and learn these type of skills. There's obviously a passion here with Mike and what they do here. It drew me over a year ago to come up here. I sent them an email quite a while ago. I finally had the time to make it up, but I'm definitely looking forward to the class, and I like how you guys are doing things up here. And the spin, it kind of fills in the gaps from probably what most of us see on the other end of the survival community. So it allows you to bring everything together and see the bigger picture of things, I think. So that's great.
No, great. Well, again, thank you for coming up and helping to share knowledge. There's never any threat of being overcrowded in learning wood skills, because there's always stuff to learn.
Always stuff to learn.
And
we're all students.
I think it behooves us all to generate resilient community of skilled practitioners than to get stuck in that adolescent stage of us versus them. It's okay to disagree, but we should figure out why and learn from each other's different approaches.
I agree 100%. There's definitely that baseline, which I've heard a couple of times since I've been here, that that common ground, so to speak, that there's plenty of room here for everybody. And again, I'm glad to be here. I'm humbled. I appreciate you having me for sure. I'm looking forward to the training.
Well, thanks. Let's have fun.
All right, Mike. Thanks.
We're going to go through the 8 arts of tracking, or the 8 disciplines of tracking, depending on which hemisphere of your brain you're more dominant in. But before we do that, there's some techniques that apply to all 8 areas of tracking. Okay? And they're on the board behind me. We're going to go over them. The sun angle's nice and low right now. It's going to be shooting up there pretty quick this time of year. Dawn and dusk are your optimum times for locating tracks, trailing, aging. There's just that much more detail with the sun angle being low. So for the first one, lighting. Lighting can be your best ally or your worst enemy, depending on how it's used. Turn these lights off real quick. There's 2 trails. Can you see them? Here is a female toeless subject turning around to pee, and here's a male toeless subject peeing. Right? You can't see them until you move your body to where Chris is sitting. So everyone take a turn just to kind of move your head forward and side angle. Alright, and that's the second piece, is angling. So go ahead, if you ever get a chance, put your gourd right here and side angle until you can see these 2 different trails. see them?
Yeah.
On rock, linoleum, hardwood floor, if it's a shiny surface area, the tracks will be a dull smudge. If it's a dull surface area, the tracks tend to be a shiny smudge. And from this side, they work pretty well too, if you wanted to scoot where I was leaning.
You can see them from here, but it's much easier to see it from the side.
Right, see how they pop? Alright, so just playing with sun angle and the angle of your own head can get those tracks to come out. Is going to, once you key in on that pace, the distance between the left side of the body's tracks and the right side of the body's tracks is going to help your eye move directly to the next area of probability for the track to appear. Right. This is how you wean yourself off of a tracking stick. Learn the pace of a house cat versus a gray fox versus a red fox versus a coyote.
The pacing means speed?
Nope. From here to there, to here to there.
Oh, so like a
to
stride.
there. And then the missing track is going to be somewhere in here. Right. And then the one after that is going to be somewhere in here. Right.
Okay.
So learn the distance between left side, heel strikes or toe strikes, and right side. How far apart is a coyote versus a red fox versus a house cat versus a skunk? Tracking. I'm going to give you all 8, and I'm also going to tell you that there's about 10 years of homework behind this 5-minute download, and I'm going to put you on some exercises. We're going to treat this weekend like triage. What are the apex skills that if you had enough to sink your teeth into and you went home and developed them for the next 3 to 5 years, you'd be living fat and happy, not off the landscape, because that denotes some kind of parasitic relationship, but with the landscape. You know, the beginner hunter goes out and kills the first thing that moves through their sight. You know, the master hunter plants apple trees and oak trees. There's a difference, right? The landscape is an extension of yourself and an extension of your prey animal. In fact, your prey animal sharpens your awareness as you sharpen its awareness. It's a symbiosis. I can't include in the term hunter folks who drive their big SUVs with the 6-pack in the passenger seat and the rifle across their lap to a dirt road, play the radio on low, just pop their 3rd beer and wait for something to be chased out of the woods.
Usually by other hunters.
Usually by other hunters. Right? I can't include in the definition of hunter that anymore. I say anymore because when I was 16 years old, that's how most of the people in the Pine Barrens hunt. You know? And the people who used bows, even the compound bows, they were like gods when we were kids because they put camouflage on their face and didn't have to wear, you know, it wasn't blaze orange back then, it was a red checkered pattern. You know? They were ninjas. There's more now. You know, that I'm finally just beginning to understand what I don't know. And there's so much of it that I don't know. So helping your logical mind become an ally instead of that thing that gets in the way when you're trying to be silent and the red squirrels are laughing at you and you're getting pissed off at them.
Which makes them
Louder, yeah. Trying negates itself, but in the beginning you have to try in order to achieve a place of what I call unconscious competence. Unconscious competence is you're not thinking, I should not make any noise in the woods. Instead, when you make a noise, you feel like you just farted in church. Because it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's like a master woodworker who goes against the grain because the phone rang or they weren't paying attention and they knew they should have known better. Unconscious competence is the baseline of proficiency.
Oldest Tai Chi is instinctual. You already know it. It's called stalking. So there are specific stalking steps. There's 16 that we teach, and most of them we don't use. 80% of the time you're going to be fox walking when you're in the bush. Who here's done? Has anyone not done fox walking? All right, cool. We're going to go outside and we're going to go through these step by step. When I go to teach this, I use a lot of yoga terminology. Don't get hung up in it. That's just my background. And I'll shut up and we'll get to work on this. Couple of things. There's more to this than just how we move. There's also camouflage, natural camouflage. What class do we teach that at?
Scout is heavy in it, but
Yep,
the awareness classes will have it.
yep. Okay, natural camouflage. In other words, if you're trying to sneak up close to touch a deer, you probably don't want to be dressed in your hippie tie-dye t-shirt. Unless you tie-dyed it with something cool like black walnut hulls.
And goldenrod.
The other thing is descenting. We had the discussion on descenting. Wash. Get in the smoke of a fire. Don't use perfume, deodorant, stuff like that. And move upwind. Move into the wind. Have the wind be stalking into the wind. When the wind changes, the animal runs. Whether you've gone through the whole descending process or not, that's been my experience. People claim that you can do it if you fast for 4 days, and you do a sweat lodge, and you wash with natural soaps, and then you do the smoke, and then you do a misting with a natural, highly scented tea. What would be some teas that would be good in this environment for that?
Mint.
Mint? Some others?
Or
Sweet fern, tansy.
fir pine.
Okay, right. Those ones that are highly scent are good, and they're used for a lot more than hunting. External skin wash is a big term we use here at our plant classes. Yeah. All right, now switch over to the other. So the palm is mostly staying up the entire time. Unless there's perfection. And then you walk in a circle. This is going to be fun with all of us right here. So, what happens if you go like once or twice around the circle, and then watch this footwork. Toe in. Watch this footwork, right? Toe in, go back the other way. So you can switch back and forth. Hands are coming in, exhaling when the hands are going forward.
So, again, this is just an introductory overview of some of the concepts in tracking, give you an idea of where you can go with it, and some of the tools on how to get there. All right. This next piece is tracking for trappers and hunters, ecological tracking. Most sand cultures got to evolve their tracking knowledge, their science of tracking, into a very detailed and intimate methodology of looking at disturbances in the ground and being able to read not just that that was a leopard running, but that that was a leopard running after a gazelle. She was a female, probably 2, maybe 3-year-old, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and that's because in a sand meeting you get all these details. Here in leaf litter, most indigenous cultures in forested areas didn't evolve their tracking knowledge beyond what it took to feed you. All right. And simply, it just took too much time. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But beyond what you need to live comfortably, there's this invisible plateau of skill development. Also here, we can cultivate what looks to the untrained eye as a wild, untamed forest. We can cultivate diversity, edge areas, and within less than a generation, see immediate results, right? And that happened here. Controlled burns were going on long before Europeans came to these shores. The idea of passenger pigeons clouding the skies for weeks, the sturgeon, having sturgeon rodeos in the Kennebec River, these are all documented historical facts that enforce the idea that the indigenous culture saw themselves as the gardeners or caretakers of their landscape. and that there was a innate sense of responsibility to generate bounty for the next generation or 7 generations out or whatever the oral tradition had going on. For our practice run with ecological tracking, what I want to do is share some concepts that are already happening out there, but if you want to, let's say you have 30 acres or your grandparents or parents own property, you could actually increase the bounty. Something as simple as felling a maple tree in March, right? To encourage the deer and rabbit population to make it through the rest of the season so that there's more of them, because you know you're going to be hunting those or trapping those animals. Puts you into that role of caretaker. All right. So let's start with this idea. All animals are played by the landscape like they're a finely tuned instrument in an orchestra. When there's a larder, right now we're at the end of apple season, okay? Those animals are being pulled to that larder. But like you, pick a favorite food. Day 17 of you eating nothing but that favorite food, and you're not liking that favorite food as a favorite food anymore. Someone's going to offer you a Slim Jim and you're going to jump at it. Okay? When we go out and we bait our traps or we look to read the landscape for where we're going to set up to hunt, we look at those larders as part of that sheet music that the animal is reading to be pushed and pulled, to be moved by. Suddenly, we're in the orchestra. All right? This is a kind of compressed example of what's going on out there in this neighborhood. We have all kinds of, well, let's say right now, we'll look at the seasons. We're in autumn right now. This area won't change, but the food availability will in the winter, spring, and summer. So we're off of apple season, in the peak of acorns, right? In the peak of autumn olive, except they just got mowed down by the city, right? So that's going to affect some things. What is out there right now that the deer are hitting, that the rabbits are hitting? And that doesn't mean you're going to bait your trap with wilted autumn olives in a giant autumn olive patch.
Into modern trapping, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and kind of go off what Mike's already explained, because I think that's one of the most important things we need to understand before we ever get into traps or hunting is, first of all, what's our target animal, and have we studied enough to know what that animal does? Where's its habitat, what's it eating, and all that good stuff. So if you're hunting, where's my ambush spot? It should be, in my opinion, somewhere between the bedding and feeding areas. Catch them when the guard's the most down. Once they get to the feeding area, there's probably more than one of them and there's eyes everywhere. So one little twitch, at least where I tend to hunt, and the deer's gone. A big difference, and I need to kind of throw both of these out there so we can understand it, is I believe there's 2 types of trapping. And that's modern trapping, alright? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, modern trapping, which usually consists of trapping for furs, pelts, things like that. And that can do a lot for you in the way of feeding yourself if you're selling the pelts and being able to buy other things that you need. And then there's survival trapping. And there's a big difference between the two, a huge difference. Survival trapping, and a lot of the things that I've heard since I got here yesterday, is using that resource to its fullest. So now you're not just trapping for that fur, for that pelt. You're trapping for the whole animal. So whether it's an animal you can eat and use the fur for something else, right down to the bones, right down to the guts, maybe for bait in another set. Does that make sense? It's good to be able to track. It's good to be able to understand the landscape through tracking and what different animals are doing. Again, to pick out your intended target animal. The one baseline that I like to use, which covers all of them, you don't have to narrow it down to a specific food source, is something that we all need, and that's water. water's huge. We all need it. So I like to start my focus first off at the water's edge, looking around the water. And you're gonna find everything there. Every animal's going there because they all need water. In modern trapping, they have all kinds of fancy things out there. They'll sell you whatever you think you need, to include all this fancy crap right here, fish oils and, you know, different types of lures, long distance lure, call lures, to get these animals in, hopefully to step on that trap pan or trip that trigger in that 220 conibear or whatever the case may be. Beaver caster is a good one for a lot more than just beaver. Again, it's just an attractant is all it is. In survival trapping, you have to get all that stuff on your own. So again, back to the water's edge, another one that is huge that Mike already talked about is like frog guts and stuff like that. All of that stuff is easy obtainable at the water's edge. You know, you can gig a frog just like that. I did it in Ohio. I think I got 6 within 20 minutes. It's just too easy. But that's going to get you going, putting bait in traps for specific target animals, stuff like that, raccoons, the possum, and that's usually what you're going to get in a set to begin with anyway. Until you weed those scavenger animals out, you may not catch your intended target animal. And just because you set a trap and say, this is a coyote set, you're more apt to catch a possum in that thing first. Maybe even the first 4 times. It all depends how you're bringing that animal in, how well you've read the landscape to begin with. Does that make sense? So, big difference between survival trapping and modern trapping.
Digging tool here. Maybe something like that for bird off.
Yeah. We're making bows.
Well, I'll explain, as I'm doing this, I'll explain what I'm doing. Right now I'm making a berm, which is like a croissant shape. That's going to force the animal to come around and go into my trap this way. Next, I start, if you don't mind me. Next, I want to dig like this and spread it out so it looks like an animal has been digging here. This is visual attraction.
Disturbance. Same thing you're looking for in tracking, same thing they pick up on.
And again, if I have sticks or logs or whatever, sticks or logs, I can put them up against here. You know, put a big log here, log here, log here. That's another way of funneling them in here. They have to approach this way. Next is you want to make a bait hole. Is that the terminology?
It's
Bait hole.
a dirt hole set.
Yeah, right in the back here. So something, you're making it appear that something's been here digging. And that's nice and tight. You save that for later, and I'll show you that. So something's been digging here. There's a hole. Okay. Then you take your lure, whatever you want. This we made last year, so it's really stinky. This is tuna, oysters. What else?
Is that what we made here in the summer?
This is made last year in Ohio, almost a year ago. And glycerin as a preservative.
That'll give you time to eat breakfast, and it should be light enough after you eat that you can do this little mini assignment before Colby takes you when we do field dressing and primitive cooking. I want to see how close you can get. I want you to see how close you can get to a chipmunk. Sounds easy enough, right? You should be able to eat right out of your hand. And they're small, so they must be stupid, right? But use all the techniques that you've been accumulating up to this point. There are chipmunks everywhere. If you want to get close and cheat, you can just take a dump and sit there for 20 minutes and a chipmunk will run across your feet in the outhouse. Right? But that's not the nature of this one. This one is using body language cues to deactivate bird alarms, which equals mammal alarms. Non-confrontational body language and mood. Remember, your emotions are part of your suite of awareness skills. And other animals, especially birds, but also other animals, read your body language to decipher your intent. And they're good at it because their lives depend on it. Nothing increases your learning curve like either getting shot at or having something hunt you down and try to eat you, right? So I want to get into some of the body language or bird language basics, give you a profile of the typical Western through hiker and what happens on the landscape and why they don't see so many animals as they go through the Appalachian Trail. And the ones that they do see, most of them are running for their lives or frozen. Right? And they've known for up to 3 full minutes that through hiker was coming. How do we lessen our signature, even make it invisible so that we can walk up to and smack a deer on the ass? Because that is a possibility. You want to make it a probability. If it's a probability to get from me to Nate to a deer, then it's a very high probability that I can take that animal with a self bow, or even a snap survival bow, right? Or an atlatl, or a throwing dart. And if you have a gun, all the easier. Especially if you have a musket, a black powder rifle, where you only get that one shot. Granted, the shot is the size of a freaking miniature cannonball, but you get one shot. And you want that target area to be right close and easy to hit. So that sets us up for a paradox. In order to get close to an animal, you have to be like the dog whisperer. You have to bring out that gentle side, that nurturing side. Anyone here work with horses before? Where you just have to read body language cues and be very subtle. But at the same time, that thing that will kill something else has to come out at a point. And if it comes out too early, you're going to spook that animal. It won't even know why sometimes. You'll be in your hunting stand, and the thought, oh, that's a lot of meat. And suddenly it looks, or stalks just out of, you ever have that? Yeah, right? I don't know how that works, but I'm telling you it happens 80% of the time or more. And all you got to do is hang out at the hunter's breakfast and listen to the stories of the old timers, and you realize, wait, this is happening to everyone. That's how it works. So how do we bypass it? We start with understanding their early detection alarm system, the birds. Birds do not waste calories. Like everything that's out there and part of the landscape, they don't have a refrigerator, a microwave, and cereal in a box. Every calorie is sacred. And if an animal or a bird is out there wasting calories, they go extinct quick because they're going to get eaten or they're going to starve. That's a pretty simple equation. So when a bird shoots up, it's called hooking. When they hook up to a branch and their whole body is pointing like an arrow, something caused that to happen. They just didn't decide, I wonder if I can do a loop. All right? They don't have that processing capability. They react to stimulus. We have that same part in our brain. We nurture it through military or martial arts, that endless training so that when something happens, you don't even think, but you throw the punch or the block or the whatever, or you're sending rounds down range and you're automatically in the in the right formation to whatever. Right? That lizard brain is quick. It's lightning quick and doesn't process. It just reacts to stimuli. So the birds are really honest. And they're going to be honest with you. If you're in your head, the birds are going to let you know because you won't see any of them. except for the corvids. In your notes, you need to know about the corvid disclaimer. Blue jays, crows, ravens, all right, magpies where there are magpies, gray jays up in northern Maine. The corvids are smart. They're smarter than the passerines or the perching birds. They can count, they use tools, they're problem solvers. Okay, in Florida they use the traffic lights in the cars and they time it perfectly so they can crack the saw palmetto nuts. They place it right in the road, aligned with the wheels, wait for the light to change, cars run them over, they swoop down when the light changes again, and they eat the meat out of the nuts. Okay, if you take 5 people and go into a blind, and then 4 come out, all the other birds think the blind is empty, but not the crows. Here we have jays deliberately swooping down, picking acorns and dropping them on our heads when we're out foraging for acorns every year. They think it's a party. It's a game. They play games. Okay? So ignore them for now. They're useful later on. Okay? They're useful later on for us. They're actually invaluable. And we'll get to that tomorrow after we debrief your exercise. So, there are, there's what, 2,000 something species of birds that come and go through Maine. You don't need to know all of them. They all have 5 basic voices. 5. Song. Everything's fine, everything's cool. I'm trying to attract a mate or defend my territory. And if I'm busy trying to hook up with a sweet young lady robin, that means I'm not worried about any weasels, hawks, coyotes, kids with BB guns. So I'm singing my heart out. Okay? Basically, you're in the green zone with this bird. Voice number 2, same thing. Call note. I'm okay, are you okay? I'm okay, are you okay? I'm okay, are you okay? You hear the chickadees as they go through the woods all the time. They do it in pecking order, by the way. Right? So the last to go are the expendable adolescents, because 80% of them will not make it to see winter. Right? And if there's a disruption in the order, everyone freezes. It's that quiet that the mossy-backed deer and the bear listen for. It's not even the alarm, it's the quiet, and they're already stalking to a better hide. What we got here? What kind of goodies are in the big bag? So this was your morning hunt here.
You don't have to do all of them because I don't want to take too long. What do you guys think? Those of you who like the skin, which one would you like the skin? Fox, yeah. Cool. Okay, so we'll do the fox. You want to try? You should do one. Do the little raccoon. That one looks fun. Raccoon? Yeah. Yeah, and if you do it, you can keep the skin. Yeah, or yourself. That's even more important than Japanese meat.
Alright, so
okay, yeah, and then just start pulling up, with that knife and just cutting.
Wait, no. What you want to try to do is go straight up the back of the
See if you can stuff it, slide the knife into the, yeah, here you go. You got it. You're getting it. Just go slow. Bring that across, all the way across by the anus area and cut around the anus like in a circle. The teeth? Yeah. Yeah, when they're babies.
Remember what happened to it?
Around
2% away,
complete
as much as possible
cuts around there.
These little guys.
Can I look at this here? Yeah. Anus. Okay, so your other cut, you're gonna cut down here, like that. See? Like this up. So you cut the anus out. Gotcha. So this little, and there'll be a little bit of hair left that we're gonna remove right there. And that, so these cuts and that cut, these 3 cuts are the ones you should do. Okay.
Skin is so tough.
You're all over. You're doing great. You bet.
So we went through, so what we're going to do now is you have, your skin that you've fleshed, hopefully, which is the first step here, skinning and fleshing, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about hair-on tanning, and then we're going to talk about buckskin, how to make like what I'm wearing here. So I'll pass around this here. This is a Bambi, much like the one that Jim and I tried to keep the hair on. And hair on for these hollow-haired animals like deer doesn't really work out. It tends to just come out over time, but it's still fun to do. And I got this to, you know, to train me to see little Bambis in the woods. You kind of put this in the woods, and then you spy on it. You know, you stock up to your skin, and it's, you know, better than nothing. You know, better than like a plastic bottle or something, right? Looks kind of like a deer. It is a deer. So you guys, and so that's a quick tanning process that if it was a little bit warmer out, maybe Liz could finish her fox today in this way, but instead she'll probably do it on a warmer day or inside by a warm stove, and it'll be better. After you've membraned it, you want to soak it. So I usually take the deer and tie it on a string, throw it in the river for overnight. The next morning I come back and pH down it a little more. The idea between soaking and pH down was to get the pH back down, because you need the pH to be low for tanning it, but high for graining it. That's why I skip it, because why I do all that. So you gotta bring it back down. So what I do is soak it, and I put a little warm water, or just regular water if you don't have warm water, just like a tiny bit, like, you know, half a liter, and just like a little tiny bit of vinegar, just to bring the pH of the water down a lot. You know, like a capful of vinegar, or just a little bit of vinegar. Mix it up, and then soak it in there 15, don't want to soak it too long, because you bring the pH really down if you just leave it in there for hours. You just want to soak it for like 15 minutes. You can even time it, 15 minutes. And then dry it. And then hang it up to dry. Now,
Okay. Well, that was quick. We started only Friday night. And after Thanksgiving dress, I'm going to take a crew and do a window, and then Carl's going to take a crew and play with some atlatl darts. I highly recommend that. If you haven't done it before, you should, because it's really fun.
it is. Very ancient.
And we have a woolly mammoth, a small woolly mammoth made of grasses. It used to be a thatched hut, and it's pretty much the only thing we could use it for now is target practice, so take advantage of what we got.
You can hit the broadside of the woolly mammoth.
All right, this is the last opportunity to shoot the woolly mammoth. It's coming down this winter and being replaced by a conical shaped structure that will eventually be a thatched hut. Thanksgiving address. Who wants to start?
Hello.
Okay, go around this way.
I'd like to bring some awareness to those people that may be left at home and forward to our return.